So, metaphor. It's a big word. We probably all know it. We probably were all introduced to it in middle school or high school. We all probably have a sense of what it means. Let me offer a starting definition for us of what a metaphor is. And this will be on the quiz, this exact question. A metaphor is talking about one thing in terms of another. So we have this idea that there are two different things being compared by the writer, and they're being compared for a reason, which is to make the reader think and perhaps learn something through the comparison. Probably at least half this class will have actually had a previous English teacher use this exact metaphor because it's one of the most famous in the English language. Juliet is the sun. So this is from Romeo and Juliet, and it's on the surface appears to be quite a simple metaphor. It's talking about one thing in terms of another. It's talking about Juliet in terms of the sun. And it's doing that because it wants to, in a sense, give us more information about Juliet. So let's put up the full quote from Romeo here, because it is Romeo that is saying this. You may have never read the play, you may have read it and forgotten it. Basically, the scene is here, Romeo, it's nighttime, and Romeo looks up to a balcony where Juliet comes out of a kind of lit window or doorway onto the balcony. So it's dark, but this girl, is appearing framed by light on a dark night. So he's looking up and in a sense comparing her to the sun. Okay? So the full line would be, "But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun." Now, I know this is older Shakespeare language. The soft, don't worry too much about it. That just kind of means the same as how we might say, hold up, or like, whoa, wait a minute, but soft. He's looking up at this window. What light through yonder, that window over there, over yonder, breaks? It is the east, because the sun rises in the east, right? And Juliet is the sun. So you have this interesting image Shakespeare is creating here of nighttime being lit up by light. Of course, at this time, it wouldn't be electric light, right? So I guess it's torchlight or lanterns of some sort. And this light in the night is being seen sort of like the sun's brightness in the sky. Now, if we take this very quick, or this small chunk, which I first brought up, Juliet is the sun. Like I said, notice we have two things being compared, or a person and a thing, Juliet and the sun. And the reason that they're being pulled together by that word is Shakespeare's forcing us to compare one thing to another, or talk about one thing in terms of another. And so the question for you as the reader is, why compare Juliet to the sun? Well, we know that literally this apartment window with a balcony and a sort of, its illumination is pushing out into the night. So there's a literal way in which it's like the sun. But it's also talking about Romeo's emotions for Juliet, right? So how might Juliet be metaphorically like the sun to Romeo? Well, you could say she gives him life. She gives him warmth of some sort. She's the center of his world. All of these are shared qualities between the actual literal sun and the feelings Romeo has for Juliet. Now, it's not an exact, it's a metaphor, right? So it's not an exact comparison. It's more poetic than scientific. Shakespeare wouldn't have thought, oh, I need people to think of Juliet as the center of Romeo's world. And since the sun is kind of the center of our world, I need the reader to know that. It's not that you need to know that, it's that it's something you might think of when you consider this sentence. Juliet is the sun. But it gets more interesting because on the one hand, this is a lie, right? Like Juliet is definitely not the sun. So to say she is the sun is almost, it's a lie, right? But it is, but we know it's a lie. That might be a way of putting it. It's a figure of speech that we're appreciating for its beauty more than being literally true. Think of two things being compared, or as I say, talked about, one of them talked about in terms of the other. Notice that, and I call this the MasterCard chart. It's a good way to remember how metaphors work because it looks like the MasterCard logo. So we have two different things, the red and the yellow portions of this graphic. And in the middle, we might see the overlap of the two circles as being the shared qualities between them. So if we have Juliet as the red circle and the sun, fittingly, as the yellow circle, the shared qualities in the overlap might be the things I was mentioning: life-giving, warmth, the center of Romeo's world. These are shared qualities of the two things being pulled together in this metaphor. But, and this is one of the real purposes of this graphic, notice that there are qualities that the two things do not share. So what I mean is things outside of this orange zone, qualities of either the sun or Juliet that are not shared between them. So, for instance, Juliet is not a gigantic burning ball of atomically exploding gases in the sky, right? That's a literal description of the sun. So Juliet is not literally the sun in that way. So why does this matter to you as a writer? Well, if you're going to use a metaphor, you want to make sure that you're focusing on the orange zone of this graphic, the qualities that the two things being compared to each other share. That's the whole point of using a metaphor. So if you say, something like, my love for you is like a raisin. It sounds weird. The reason it probably doesn't work as a metaphor is because we can't think of any ways, off the top of our head anyway, that love could be like a raisin. Now you could work with it, right? You could start to think like, oh, maybe this is a love that was once fresh like a grape, but is now turned into a raisin, and it's more mature love. It's sweet, but it's not fresh. Okay, maybe we're starting to work with it. And then there's that famous Langston Hughes poem where he says, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Now there's an interesting comparison between a dream and a raisin in the sun. And there, that metaphor starts to have power because it starts to make sense, right? So, I know that this is probably sort of high-level talk for some people, but metaphors are, in a sense, what gives color to your writing. Intelligent comparisons between things are fun for a reader. They give it they give your writing a vibrant, kind of exciting quality. as opposed to just saying everything literally. It's the difference between saying Juliet is really, really important to me and I'm in love with her. That's all true for Romeo, right? But isn't it more interesting and beautiful to say Juliet is the sun? It has poetry to it, right? Even though it's not literally saying how he feels, it's somehow more powerful, I think, than saying it literally.